Peak, by definition, is a word describing something that's too good. You'd use this word to describe how good something was. An example would be at the peak of the moment. Squirrel Girl is peak. Now, I know what you might be saying. What about Squirrel Girl is peak? And is this any way related to you being a Tier 1 Gooner? Yes. You could say this is in relatability of me being a Tier 1 Gooner. You could say that because I'm a Tier 1 Gooner, I'm describing as Squirrel Girl as peak because she is peak Gooner material. However, that would be the equivalent to a miner striking gold, running off with it, and refusing to continue mining to realize that he will eventually strike diamond. Yes, Squirrel Girl is peak Gooner material. But is that all you simps really have to look for? To determine a character's peak by if it's good to goon to them or not? To goon or not to goon is the question. I agree. But we need to be delving deeper into characters. We need to be delving deeper into why a character is peak. And it can't just be for gooning reasons. How shallow would that make us as a society if we determined if something was peak or not because of its goonerability? So, Squirrel Girl is peak. But not because she's D1 Gooner material. No. She is so much more than just Gooner material. Squirrel Girl, in and of itself, is an anomaly to me. She is genuinely probably one of the best characters and most fun characters I've probably had the opportunity to experience a game with ever. Her interactions with all the other heroes in Marvel Rivals are peak. Every interaction she has just serves to bring her personality to front stage center. And it really, when you delve deeper into these interactions, you get a piece of who Squirrel Girl is. And you get that for every single hero in the game. But Squirrel Girl is special. Squirrel Girl is different. Squirrel Girl just has this enthusiasm about her that just makes it so fun to listen to her talk to whoever she's talking to. She is genuinely probably one of my favorite characters of all time. I'll say it. Her as a character in Marvel Rivals alone is phenomenal. It's phenomenal. I love her lore. I love everything about Squirrel Girl. And I'm about to go into a few short details here. Her gameplay can be summed up to be quite simplistic. But if you only play a couple minutes of Squirrel Girl. She shoots these exploding acorns that can bounce and ricochet off walls to hit enemy units, to hit the enemy. One of her abilities allows her to throw a giant acorn at the enemy and then briefly stun them. Another one of her abilities is by using her tail, she can push herself up a good distance up into the air and float back down. So she can push herself up into the air. And then another ability fully reloads her slingshot, which has 10 ammo. It has 10 acorns in it before she needs to reload. And then also allows her to refill or recharge all of her abilities prior. So you can use the ability to stun enemies again. And then you can also use the ability to push up. Use her tail to push up again. Which is really something. Yeah. She's a genuinely incredible character. Her ult is not the best in the game, I will admit. Her ult can be better, but it is still incredibly good. She summons an army of squirrels to charge at a location. The squirrels can bounce off and hit multiple enemies at the same time. Basically, it requires key positioning and key points in order to really just get into the skill of Squirrel Girl. You could get several kills with this ult. It's all about key positioning and practice. Now, I'm going to open Marvel Rivals because I do not have it open yet on my PC. I'm going to read her lore, her stats, basically just tell you everything about Squirrel Girl. This is just an introductory course to Squirrel Girl and why she is so peak. So, why I really like playing Squirrel Girl. I think her mechanics are fun. She is probably one of those heroes you can classify as skillless. But to be honest, if we really wanted to class heroes as skillless, that would be basically every single DPS except for maybe Spider-Man, every single Vanguard, and then every single strategist. So, yeah. Basically what I'm trying to say is a lot of these heroes do not require skill, and that's perfectly fine. In fact, I'd rather them not have skill to play. I'd rather them be easy to play but also have a huge high skill ceiling, which is what Squirrel Girl is. She has that super high Squirrel Girl ceiling, where if you get better with her, she will become a devastating force. She will be constantly in the back line, sniping off your back line, sniping you off and sniping your vanguards off because you guys can't push forward because she's constantly killing you. Now it is time we really just digest Squirrel Girl. Not in a vor sense, but in a sense of, just realizing her capabilities. Alright, let me read you her lore. Her hero name is Squirrel Girl, but her actual name is Doreen Green. Doreen Green is more than just a computer science student at Empire State University. She also happens to have the powers of a squirrel and the powers of a girl. With her BFFF, best furry friends forever, Tippy Toe by her side, Doreen eats nuts and kicks butts as the unbeatable Squirrel Girl. After the time stream entanglement, things got weirder. With all of New York City under attack by creatures of the night, Squirrel Girl assembled an adorable army to reclaim Central Park from the clutches of Dracula. Here's hoping vampires don't like the taste of squirrel. There's a lot to unpack here in the lore. First of all, computer science student. So you already know she's quite intelligent. She's an That was her acorns. We know she's an intelligent woman, and she's just very smart. So I really appreciate that. The lore gives us a ton of things to work with here of what we can make out of not only Squirrel Girl, but Doreen Green. Because yes, Doreen Green is Squirrel Girl, but Squirrel Girl isn't Doreen Green. If that makes any sense. She also happens to have the powers of a squirrel and the powers of a girl. I really do like the inclusivity here. And the powers of a girl. It's like, it just makes it seem like girls are like magical. Or just in real life have like superpowers. Which is kind of true. They really do. And the powers of a squirrel. It's so interesting. Right? Because when you think of a superpower, when you think of an animal superpower, what do you think of? You think of lions, I don't know. No one ever expects a squirrel. Right? Like you've never seen, say, Beast Boy from Teen Titans. You've never seen him transform into a squirrel. Just something to think about. I find it so incredible that she has the powers of a squirrel, and it's not like she's like lamenting over that fact. She takes pride in it, and that's kind of something I really admire about Squirrel Girl, because other people would be looking down at her for who she is as a hero. It's like, oh wow, you've got squirrel powers? What's that gonna do? I really enjoy the fact that she embraces and empowers herself and her squirrel like abilities, because it just goes to show that confidence that she has, that I really appreciate that she has. And then best furry friend forever, she's a great pet owner. Tippy Toe, that's a good name. She's a really good name person. Doreen eats nuts and kicks butts as the unbeatable Squirrel Girl. Unbeatable Squirrel Girl. Unbeatable. With this, we could probably just say, okay, she probably easily beats your favorite character. Unbeatable Squirrel Girl. It's right there in the title. No one's beaten her before. Because they underestimate her. They underestimate Doreen Green, and they underestimate Squirrel Girl. And then, obviously, there's a part with Dracula and, assembling an army, so she's a leader as well. She's just overall an incredibly confident woman who doesn't give two shits about what you think of her. And I really admire that, because it is hard to not give two shits about what people think about you. But yet, here she is, doing it in all her glory, and it's just incredible. Now, if we look at her abilities, these are the attacks I was talking about earlier. She's got Burst Acorn, Unbeatable Squirrel Tsunami, Tail Bounce, Mammal Bond, Squirrel Blockade, Webbed Acorn, and then obviously suggested combos. Let me read you the descriptions. Burst Acorn is her normal attack. Shoot bouncing burst acorns. Now, she can shoot them at the ground and it will explode and do damage to those around it. So she's a very good burst DPS. Unbeatable Squirrel Tsunami. Summon a horde of squirrels to charge forward, dealing damage while bouncing against structures. That's pretty good. Tail Bounce. Rocket upwards with the bounce of her tail. So when she needs to escape, if she wants to get to a higher elevation, so she can have the high ground. Perfectly good. Mammal Bond. This is her ability that recharges her abilities. Reload burst acorns and can use an ability without cooldowns once in a short duration. It's really good. And then Squirrel Blockade. Launch an acorn to unleash squirrel guards, imprisoning the first hit enemy. It's really good to stun the enemy, because then you can just truly unleash your burst acorns at them and then do as much damage as you possibly can. Webbed Acorn. She has a combo with Spider-Man. Spider-Man gives Squirrel Girl a web bomb. She can launch it to unleash an explosion upon contact with the environment or an enemy, briefly immobilizing and damaging enemies caught in the blast. So it's basically a better Squirrel Blockade. She has one way of stunning, and then another way if you partner her up with Spider-Man. So overall, she's just incredible. If we look at her overview, she's a duelist, Squirrel Girl, Doreen Green. She's a 1-star difficulty. And that's why I say it's easy to play her. And I appreciate that she's a 1-star, because it means she's easy to play while she also has a high skill ceiling. So you can put a ton of hours into her and, really get good with her. Possessing only the powers of a common squirrel. A common squirrel. It's not a special squirrel. It's not a bulked up squirrel. It's a common squirrel. Somehow, Doreen Green manages to defeat seemingly invincible enemies in the most unexpected ways. Any foe who counts her out is bound to fall at the hands of the unbeatable Squirrel Girl. That is what I was talking about. She is unbeatable, and I appreciate that fact about her, because it really just helps empower Squirrel Girl, and just shows the haters that that anyone who looks down on her shouldn't be looking down on her. Why are you looking down on her? Is it because she's a woman? Is it because she has powers of a squirrel? Don't look down on her. She'll beat your ass. She'll beat my ass. She'll beat your ass. She'll beat everyone's asses. So I really appreciate that. We go back into the lore section. And then we don't have any other hero stories. But we do have Bushwhack. I'm going to read this story. Because I really, really do like this story. It's a bit of a long one. But stay with me. Well, that should take care of them, the unbeatable Squirrel Girl said as she stood over a group of freshly defeated attackers. Another horde of vampires down for the count. Good work, everybody. As Squirrel Girl praised her army of rodent companions for their efforts, the tiny creatures began to chitter with delight. They would do anything for their human friend Doreen Green, even risk their lives against the seemingly endless throng of nocturnal nightmares that had emerged after an ancient curse trapped New York City in a state of perpetual night. You've definitely earned a trip to Mr. Hickory's fresh roasted nut cart on the corner of 55th and, before Squirrel Girl could finish that thought, her BFFF, best furry friend forever, Tippy Toe scurried past her fellow squirrels and climbed right onto Doreen's shoulders. As Tippy began to chirp into Squirrel Girl's ear, Doreen's ever-present smile dropped a bit. Did I mention she could speak to animals? Because she can. And that is amazing. Wait, that can't be right, Squirrel Girl said. A giant squirrel fell out of the sky here in Central Park. Are you sure, Tippy? Tippy Toe leapt from Squirrel Girl's shoulder and bolted back towards the heart of the park. Before she disappeared into the woods, she turned around and beckoned for her friend to come along. Guess Mr. Hickory is going to have to keep his nuts warm a little longer, Squirrel Girl said, shrugging as she followed Tippy Toe into the dark forest. The rest of the squirrels stayed close behind Doreen, ready to take on whatever threats might be lurking in the shadows. Pause. So right there, we get a sense of her leadership. And we get a sense of protection she provides these squirrels. And that's really cool. That is dope. As soon as they reached a clearing, Squirrel Girl realized that Tippy Toe hadn't been exaggerating in the slightest. There, in the middle of a small impact crater, was the biggest squirrel Doreen had ever seen. Her furry friends surrounded the creature and stared in awe, but something was clearly wrong. The giant rodent was hurt. Bad. Excuse me, ma'am, the Squirrel Girl said cautiously. You look like you could use a friend. The enormous squirrel replied with pain in its voice. I am so far from home, yet the scent of this realm seems oddly familiar. Tell me, to where have I fallen, dear child? You're on Earth, New York City, to be exact, Squirrel Girl responded proudly. Whoa, hold on, did you just talk? Indeed, the creature said, lifting its massive head to get a better look at the curious human girl with a rodent's tail. I mean, I know you can talk to me, Squirrel Girl continued. I talk to squirrels all the time. It's one of my superpowers. But you weren't just chirping and chittering. You talked in English, like a person. The squirrels of Midgard do not have the ability to speak, the mysterious rodent said. What a shame. I know, right? Squirrel Girl mused. I'm the only one who gets to enjoy all of their stories. I guess I'm just lucky. Here we can see her humility, her patience, her kindness, her warmth. She enjoys what the squirrels have to say. She doesn't just brush them off. She doesn't just, try to put them down because they're squirrels. She genuinely listens and cares for the squirrels. I have a story to tell as well, the oversized squirrel said, but sadly there's very little luck in it. Ooh, I wish I had some popcorn, Squirrel Girl said as she sat cross-legged on the ground next to her new friend, eager to learn more. Her squirrel companions gathered around and listened intently. Not only is she a great listener, but so is all of her friends. My name is Ratotsker. Ratotsker. Rat at Oscar. Ratosker. Ratada. My name is Rat, the creature began. I hail from the Golden Kingdom, once known as Asgard. Through my true home is in the branches of Yggdrasil, the world tree. Asgard, Squirrel Girl exclaimed. Are you friends with Thor? Because I totally am. Again, here, we see she's basically friends with everybody. How do you not like a girl who's friends with everybody? A, I have known the God of Thunder since he was just a boy. Rat continued, it was my sworn duty to climb the world tree, delivering messages across the 10 realms. It was a simple life, but one I took great pride in. I sought no glory, and I posed no threat, or so I believed. Here comes the part where Loki does something nasty, right? Squirrel Girl asked excitedly, chomping down on a handful of acorns that she had found scattered on the ground nearby. Here, I do not like what they did with Squirrel Girl here. She just assumes the worst out of Loki. And I feel like this is a moment in her development where Squirrel Girl really should have just self-reflected. Why would she make that assumption about Loki? He's trying to change for the better, and she's assuming the worst of him. It's like, why would you do that? Why would you just assume the worst of somebody? I don't like this moment, but it is good for character development. It really just goes to show that Squirrel Girl isn't perfect. She's not a perfect character, and I appreciate that because that gives me some relatability, because I too make assumptions about people. I don't want to make assumptions about people, but I do. I'm trying not to make assumptions about people, but I still make assumptions about people. It really just goes to show that even the best of us, someone like Doreen Green, someone like Squirrel Girl, still makes common mistakes like someone like me. I have my qualms with the trickster for his treatment of Yggdrasil, Rat said, but according to a vision I had, I do not believe it was Loki who laid me low. In fact, it was 2 Midgarians who sought to end my days. A mortal sorcerer in a metal mask and the Lord of Vampires himself. Yikes! Squirrel Girl yelped. The 2 must have conjured a spell to rip me from my beloved Yggdrasil, Rat said, trailing off as she considered what had occurred. And then you crash-landed here, Squirrel Girl finished, right into the heart of vampire territory. I bet they were planning to send in an undead army to take you prisoner, or worse. But why? I mean, sure, squirrels are some of the toughest fighters ever, and it's nice to see someone finally realizing that. But there are so many other threats that these jerks are up against. Aside from your obvious awesomeness, what makes you so special? I appreciate this one line here. I really, really do. I mean, sure, squirrels are some of the toughest fighters ever. She doesn't assume squirrels are weak. She doesn't make the assumption that, oh, I have a squirrel power, I'm weak, I'm pathetic. No. She builds that up. She brings it up. She doesn't tear it down. She lifts squirrel society up. She doesn't make the absolute worst assumption about squirrels. She loves them. And I love that she loves them because it shows maturity. It shows that, well, I might not have gotten the best superpowers ever, but I will make do with what I have been given. She is grateful. She is humility. She is perfect. Well, not perfect, but she's a peak character. She's peak. My horn, Rat said, motioning to the long wooden tusk protruding from her forehead. Yeah, Squirrel Girl said. I was going to ask about that. I just assumed another. You were some sort of magical squirrel icon or something. Again, with the assumptions, but that's okay because it builds her character, it builds her flaws, and it shows that she is just like us. She makes assumptions just like us, and I really appreciate that. The horn is made from a branch of Yggdrasil itself, Rat said. It is imbued with the world tree's life-giving power. Should it pierce the Vampire King's heart, it would likely end even his eternal reign. In order to remove such a risk, they are undoubtedly seeking to remove me from play. Well, they'll have to go through us first, Squirrel Girl exclaimed, lifting her fist in the air triumphantly. There, right there. She knows what she's up against. She's up against Doom. She's up against Dracula. She's up against an entire army. And what does she have? Squirrels. But that does not bring her down. She pumps herself up. She gains confidence in her powers and confidence in herself and what she can do. And she's not defeated by the challenge. She rises to the challenge. She wants to go right now to beat Doom's ass, to beat Dracula's ass, and to save Squirrel Society. And Rat. This is peak character right here. She is not a pity machine. She doesn't want your pity. Because she knows she's not pitiful. She knows what her abilities are. She knows how useful she is. And she knows what she can contribute. She knows how to help. Her squirrel companions all squeaked with joy, but silence quickly fell once more as the leaves around them began to rustle. Suddenly, several vampires lunged out from the woods, hissing and baring their sharp teeth as they rushed towards Rat. "You know the drill, gang," Squirrel Girl shouted to her tiny squirrel friends. The squirrels jumped into action, scampering forward to meet their attackers. In a frenzy of teeth and claws, the vampires soon found themselves overpowered by the bushy-tailed battalion. Every time they managed to shake off one rambunctious rodent, 3 more took its place. "I'd bet on buck teeth over fangs any day," Squirrel Girl cheered as her fearsome foes fled back into the darkness. I mean, she took down a group of vampires with squirrels. That is how powerful she is. She's a great leader. She's not incompetent. She's clearly intelligent. She's a strategist, even though she's duelist. She is peak. She is a peak character. But before the hairy heroes could celebrate another hard-earned victory, the next wave of vampiric villains emerged from the forest, this time nearly doubled in number. At the center of the horde stood a pale-skinned man in a pitch-black suit and a blood-red cape adorned with gold ornamentation. His commanding presence made it instantly clear that he was the one in charge. The vampires around him eagerly awaited his orders. "Stand aside, child," the vampire said to Squirrel Girl, his voice as cold as ice. "This creature belongs to me." I love this part right here. "I don't know who you think you are, buddy," Squirrel Girl said defiantly, "but Rat is with us now. You don't get to hurt her." Instantly standing up for her friends, instantly standing for what's right, even when in the face of challenge, even when in the face of adversity, even when in the face of something as terrifying as a vampire. She is courageous. She is incredible. She's incredible. "I wouldn't dream of it," the vampire said. "I have far more important plans for that mangy beast. You, however, shall not be as fortunate. So swears Dracula." "Dracula?" a bewildered Squirrel Girl muttered. No, it can't be." "Oh, it is," Dracula responded with a grin, his fangs glistening in the light of the blood moon. "And you, my dear, shall be the next to join my eternal legion." With a wave of his hand, Dracula unleashed his vampire horde upon Squirrel Girl. She dodged and leaped as quick as she could, hoping to prevent them from sinking their sharp teeth into her flesh. "Don't let them get to Rat!" Squirrel Girl yelled, clearly more concerned about her newly arrived ally than about herself. She is selfless. She's selfless. Even though her rodent army vastly outnumbered the vampire, Squirrel Girl quickly realized that her forces were gravely outmatched. These were Dracula's most elite soldiers, and Doreen knew that she and her friends were in over their heads. "Tippy, call in reinforcements!" Squirrel Girl shouted. With a loud series of squeaks, Tippy Toe beckoned forth every animal that called Central Park home, from rats and raccoons to frogs and felines. As they skittered across the ground towards the unsuspecting vampires, another wave of animals swooped down from the skies. "I didn't know you could speak, bird, Tippy," Squirrel Girl exclaimed, genuinely surprised to see the large feathered flock furiously pecking at her toes. Tippy Toe shrugged with confusion. "Those creatures are not of this realm." "Here comes the plot twist," Rat said. "The ravens serve Loki himself, and the crows belong to Hela. Apparently, Dracula is not the only one searching for my whereabouts." So now, not only is Squirrel Girl protecting Rat from Dracula, she's now protecting Rat from Dracula, Hela, and Loki. This is peak cinema. "Hey, we'll take all the help we can get," Squirrel Girl said, leaping forward to join the flurry of teeth and beaks and claws and talons. Squirrel Girl's furry friends continue to do everything in their power to distract the undead warriors from their true prey, but then, without warning, every one of Doreen's beloved squirrels abruptly stopped in their tracks. Guys, Squirrel Girl said, what's going on? You're not the only one who can speak to rodents, Dracula mused. In the past, I've reserved this talent for bats and rats, but I suppose it works on squirrels just as well. And I, for one, shall enjoy the irony of what is about to unfold. And then we get into the heartbreaking moment. But this is where heroes are made. Tippy Toe and her fellow squirrels turned to face Squirrel Girl, their eyes glowing a sinister red. Squirrel Girl gasped in horror as she realized that Dracula had somehow pitted her best friends against her. Although she herself was not under the Vampire King's thrall, Squirrel Girl still found herself unable to move, completely paralyzed by the shock of the moment. No, please, Squirrel Girl shouted as the ravenous rodents began to descend upon her. But where there is darkness, in every single story, there will always be a glimmer of hope. But before the tiny terrors could devour Doreen, a powerful blast erupted from the skies, knocking the squirrels back and breaking them free from Dracula's control. Looks like you've got a rodent problem, kid, a semi-robotic voice said. Lucky for you, I happen to be on pest control duty. Iron Man descended from above and landed on one side of Squirrel Girl. On her other side, Moon Knight glided onto the scene. The two heroes had arrived just in the nick of time. I'm so glad you guys are here, Squirrel Girl gushed with glee. We were trying to rescue this giant Asgardian squirrel when Dracula and his army attacked us. I don't know how, but he turned my little buddies against me. For a moment there, I really thought it was all over. It is, Iron Man said as he blasted back a few more vampires with his repulsors. We're getting you out of here now. Not without Rat, Squirrel Girl said. Yeah, about that, Moon Knight replied, tossing a few crescent-shaped shuriken at the oncoming attackers. I don't see any giant squirrels around here. No Dracula either. And they say I'm the crazy one. Squirrel Girl looked towards the site where Rat had landed earlier and was shocked to find that her new friend had gone missing. And Moon Knight was right about Dracula's disappearance as well. She was just here, I swear, Squirrel Girl cried. Dracula must have escaped with her when we were looking. We have to go after them. Not a chance, Iron Man said. We've barely got the means to fight off a handful of regular fainers. We're definitely not ready to face off against Dracula. Not yet, Moon Knight added, as if he knew something the others did not. This will come into play eventually. But when the time comes, Iron Man continued, we're going to need every ally we can find, alive. That includes you. Now come with me. Iron Man lifted into the air, grabbing Squirrel Girl under the arms and taking her with him. And consider this your lucky day. Wait, no! Squirrel Girl pleaded. Not only was she abandoning Rat, but her squadron of squirrels was being left behind to fend for themselves as well. Only Tippy Toe had managed to climb aboard the Iron Man Express before it took flight. Squirrel Girl's gaze stayed fixed on the park below until her tiny allies had faded completely from sight. With a heavy heart, she turned her attention to the blood moon hanging over her beloved city. Trust me, kid, Iron Man said as they flew together towards the safety of Avengers Tower. This is for the best. The armored Avengers seemed strangely confident about the fact, but for the first time she could remember, Squirrel Girl wasn't feeling quite so optimistic. I mean, it's a story that ends in heartbreak and suspense because there's bushwhack, then there's another bushwhack, and then there's X gene test positive. But these stories aren't out yet. I mean, Squirrel Girl as a character is just incredible. She's incredible. Her confidence, her ability in ourselves, her confidence in our ability in ourselves, of her friends, of her powers is overwhelming. She's honestly astounding. It's unbelievable they managed to really sink their teeth into Squirrel Girl and make her the best character they could have for this game. It really is just peak. Everything about Squirrel Girl, her abilities, her moves, her costumes, which she should get more costumes, by the way. But that's a discussion for another time. Her lore is incredible. Everything about Squirrel Girl is peak. And I reached this amount of time talking about Squirrel Girl, and not once did I have to say that she's peak, because she's a thick fucking baddie who is absolutely beautiful and is hot as fuck, and that I would goon to her. I didn't have to say that to mention that she was peak. Of course, I'm saying it now, but it was obvious. She truly is a Marvel rival.